At this point of the NFL offseason, you're hearing a lot of players getting hyped up and a lot of hot takes, and you're also going to hear some outright lies. Here are some takes that you should not believe. Drop a comment below with one lie that you keep seeing on social media that you're not buying for fantasy football. First, quick reminder, if you want to join us in a dynasty league where we teach you how to build a champion and you can compete with us and other Endgame community members, well, look no further than flockfantasy.com/endgame. Join the flock. You get 30% off any subscription right now. You'll learn how to play Dynasty and build a winner in no time flat. Compete for a $100 grand prize. No entry fee required with any subscription to the flock. Oh, and access to our Discord, our rankings, bonus articles, bonus videos, and so much more. Check it out right now. flockfantasy.com/endgame. All right, now let's get to those takes that just flat out wrong. Now, of course, nobody's wrong in the offseason, right? The season hasn't started yet. You can't be proven wrong until the games begin, but I am not buying into this. Let's start with the first one. We'll talk about a guy who's just been criminally undervalued again, Mark Andrews at tight end. So just looking at last year's production, you see that Mark Andrews wasn't the tight end 1 or tight end 2, and somebody here is posting, why is Mark Andrews consistently ranked in a higher tier than Hawk, Kittle, or Goddard? Chris, is that even a fair question to ask?
I mean, I guess it's fair because Andrews was disappointing last year, but to me, Andrews just has the ceiling that those other guys don't. Like, you can't just look at points per game last year and Hawkinson scored, 0.3 of a point per game more than Andrews and say they should be in the same tier. I think we all hopefully understand that Mark Andrews has a much higher ceiling than TJ Hawkinson or George Kittle or Dallas Goedert. I mean, just a couple years ago, Mark Andrews was a tight end 1 in all of fantasy and helped people win championships. And I think that's the kind of ceiling he has that these other guys just don't. In this year, in this offense, I think people are sleeping on Andrews a bit because this is going to be a drastically different offense. They're going to throw the ball more. They're going to play faster. They're going to run more plays. I think the Ravens are going to be an offense. It's going to surprise a lot of people. And look, I know they added Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham, but come on. Mark Andrews is still going to be one of the top focal points of this offense. To me, he's clearly the number 2 behind Travis Kelce and really the only other tight end I would even consider drafting early.
That's it. We keep saying it. Go Kelce early or just wait on tight end. You don't have to go that early, but if you are, it's got to be Mark Andrews number 2. I can very easily, take this statistic that is misleading, as a lot of statistics are. Points per game, I mean, that's kind of an overly simplistic, almost lazy way to point to player production. But again, you take out this one monster game, and all of a sudden his points per game plummet. And also, George Kittle had 2 big games at the very end of the season with Brock Purdy, who's not going to be ready to start the season, most likely. And his points per game would plummet. And Mark Andrews, let's not forget, didn't end the season with his starting quarterback. He had Tyler Huntley there for several games, not Lamar Jackson. And look, Odell Beckham, how long is it going to be till he gets hurt? Rashad Bateman is already hurt, and Zay Flowers, I love Zay Flowers, but he's a rookie. Mark Andrews will be the number 1 target in this offense, and I think clearly the number 2 tight end in fantasy. Now, here's a take you hear almost every single year. Blah, 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 receiver, who is now going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs, is being slept on, is being undervalued. This year it's Kadarius Tony, and of course he's going to break out just because he's on the Chiefs, right? Unlike last year when he was on the Chiefs. So, how about this? Kadarius Tony ranked first in targets per route run among all wide receivers from Week 9 to the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, and it's like none of you even care. You got to love the tweets that end with like none of you even care, because implying that you just don't know better. But, Chris, what is wrong with this take?
Well, I think what's wrong with this take is it implies that Kadarius Tony should be drafted way, way higher than he is right now. But I think he's being very fairly drafted, to be honest, because Kadarius Tony is one of these guys who, yes, we know Kadarius Tony's potential. Get the ball in his hands, let him do his thing. But we also know the risk. Number 1, he can't stay healthy. And number 2, he's not a polished wide receiver. There's a lot of holes in his game. He's not one of these guys that can go out there, run every route, and be your week in, week out number 1 wide receiver. And I'm talking about for an NFL team and your fantasy team. So I like where Tony's going right now. He's going in that range of guys like George Pickens, Traylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, guys with potential upside, but also guys with potential downside. I think he's being fairly valued right now. This tweet just makes it sound like this guy should be way, way higher in drafts, and I can't get behind that.
Yeah, so be cautious anytime somebody pulls out a stat with a very selective sample size, only from week 9 on. You know, that's something you definitely should be wary of because what happened the rest of the season? Okay, fine. Look, maybe he's somebody who has the potential to do something, but again, a very selective stat here, yards per route run. Well, he didn't run that many, and so yeah, it's going to be more inflated because he just wasn't out there enough, and volume sort of matters. But also, here's the thing: Kadarius Tony, talented, sure, he has to stay healthy. Prove to me that he's going to actually stay out there for most of the season, if not all the season, and then I'll be interested after that actually happens. And then how many times are we going to overhype any Chiefs player? Every Chiefs player, just like last year, MVS was going to be a league winner, right? Or maybe Richie James will be it this year. It doesn't matter. I'm not buying into this. I'm not saying I won't draft him anywhere ever. In best ball, I'll take a couple of shots, but the whole wide receiver one thing, forget it. Now let's talk about a player we were telling you was going to be undervalued last year, and now he's going to be overvalued, sadly, this year. That's Breece Hall of the Jets. So you're going to hear this a lot in the coming weeks. Breece Hall, I'm ahead of schedule. Coach Robert Saleh, Breece Hall's ahead of schedule. All right, clips from OTA, training camp, whatever. Hey, Breece Hall's ahead of schedule. And then random reporter, I don't know if Breece's recovery will be all right. So he's now all of a sudden a buy low candidate. Draft, he's undervalued. False. Chris, what is the problem here with Breece Hall? If he's out there in week 1, aren't we getting a screaming value?
No. The problem is, like, injury, like massive injuries like this, like the Cam Akers Achilles injury from a few years ago, the ACL injuries like Saquon, and now Breece Hall. There's always this group, and look, I used to be one of these people, so I'm not like I used to be the guy saying like he can do it, he can come back from it. But there's always this group of people who think like this guy is the exception. This guy's the one. And look, somebody eventually is going to be the exception. It's like, right, what do they say? What is it? That clock is right. I don't know what the saying is. You know what I'm talking about. But anyways, the point is like, yeah, sure. Eventually, if you keep saying like something's going to happen over and over, you're going to be wrong 50 times. But the 51st time, okay, sure, you're going to be right. And maybe Breece will be the 51st time or whatever. But like you're really betting against the odds here. Like big time betting against the odds because we've only really seen it one time, and that was Adrian Peterson, who's an absolute freak of nature. So, look, maybe Breece Hall is close to 100% by the end of the season. But even if he's out there week 1, it doesn't mean he's 100% ready to go. He's almost certainly going to be on a very limited snap count to start the season. Even Saquon Barkley, who tore his ACL earlier in the year before, was on a very limited snap count to start the season. So, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Like, good luck to everybody who wants to do it. Maybe he'll be the one exception. And look, I'm sure next year, unfortunately, we're going to have players tear the ACL again this year. It sucks, but it's part of the game. And I guarantee you there's going to be people next year saying, this guy can do it, and we'll see if they do.
Yeah, so here's 4 words of advice included here that I will never take again. Take the ACL discount. No, don't do it. It's not a discount. It's a mistake. It's a risk. And you're not getting as much of a discount as you think because everyone else wants that discount too. Look, even in Dynasty, I'll tell you, because we've been saying this, we think that Breece Hall is going to be overdrafted in redraft leagues. We can say, well, in Dynasty, he's so young. But you're not getting a discount because everyone still has this guy as one of the top running backs in Dynasty, and everyone thinks they're getting that same discount. Why not wait until after the year starts and he isn't as effective as we think, and then you get the discount? You're not getting it right now. Wait until the season is halfway through or toward the end. If he even gets injured again, then you would get the discount. But right now is not the time to buy him in redraft or dynasty or anywhere. Don't believe those lies, but also don't draft these guys because you should definitely be worrying about them.